Chapter 7, Morocco to Algerian border. It's early in the morning before sunrise. Nancy and I are packed up and ready to go. I escaped from our communal home in Essaouira, Morocco, like a silent thief in the night. We tiptoe out the door, each loaded down with a backpack, making our way into town via the roadside along the beach. The house soon disappears as we make haste down the road. We walk to the bus station and purchase tickets on the first line out of town back to Marrakesh. I have eluded Eileen. When she wakes, she will discover I skipped town. Now I'm traveling with Nancy, a gal I'm not attracted to sexually. Good thing for me. She's a plain-looking, droopy-faced, homely girl. She's snoring in my face as we lay next to each other in a bed at the Hotel Agadir. I hope my traveling companion agreement with Nancy works out. I'm a little wary about the plan right now. I don't know if I want this commitment burden. Maybe I should just travel alone. Time will tell. I know I need to be around people. For now, we are stuck together. It feels good to be back in Marrakesh from Essaouira, though I miss the crowd I left behind. People grow attached to each other in a foreign land, living together in a bubble of sorts, like a traveling commune. I really enjoyed the people and the crazy good times, but I had to escape from Eileen. What wild experiences I had with that girl. After a while, though, she became a sponge, soaking up my time and energy with her drama. Nancy rolls around in bed, flopping her arm on me. I continue writing in my journal under a dim lamplight. It's late at night, around 3 a.m, but I can't sleep. My mind is racing, thinking of all the travel ahead of us. We will be on the move quite a bit. Today we are in Marrakesh. Tomorrow we need to get to Casablanca. Then we need to head northeast to the Moroccan-Algerian border. And we keep moving from there. Nancy and I are sharing the cost of hotel rooms and camaraderie, so that helps. Win-win for both of us. I walked from the hotel to the post office earlier today to pick up a letter from my brother back home. Included is a wire transfer of $250. Wow. Much needed relief from my financial burden. Now I'm replenished to travel with Nancy. I was really tight there. I was down to my last shekels, so to speak. I hear some Aretha Franklin. Respect. Great sounds of music originating from my home sweet home in my beloved Motown. I walk toward the music in a lobby of a nearby hotel, and who do I see lounging by the pool with a transistor radio by his ear at full volume? Woodstock, is that you? Yes, it is. It's Dan Goldberg, my gangly American friend from Connecticut. Great to see you, man, I say, reunited with a member of the infamous Formentera Five. We laugh, hoot, and holler till we are red in the face with tears of joy. The Balearic Islands will never be the same, laughs Dan. Hey, man, I don't mean to be rude, but I got a split. I say, I wanted to hear where the music was coming from, and I followed the sounds to you, wouldn't you know? I've got to go, my friend. I'm heading across North Africa through Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. It's going to be grueling, I'm sure. We shake hands one final time and exchange contact information in each other's address books. Good luck to you, says Dan. Maybe we will run into each other somewhere else in the world one day. I move on to my own hotel a few blocks away. I need to make sure Nancy is up and ready to go. Now that I have my money, we need to move. The odyssey must continue on to new destinations. Nancy bought train tickets for us yesterday on the Marrakesh Express back to Casablanca. The train leaves at 2 p.m. and it's nearing noon hour. I arrive at the room we share in the Hotel Agadir. I walk in the room and catch Nancy naked after a shower. She lets out a piercing scream. I quickly close the door and step back into the hallway. Sorry about that, I holler through the door. I should have knocked before I barged in. Nancy comes to the door, wrapped in a towel, and invites me back in. That's okay. You startled me. Thanks for going out and letting me cover up, she says. No problem. Thanks for being such a good sport about it, I say. Are you going to be ready to go soon? Oh, yeah. Did you get your letter? Uh-huh, I say, nodding my head, and $250 wired to me. Great. Here's what I owe you, thanks. I peeled off several bills from my money roll to pay for my train ticket that Nancy bought yesterday. Nancy and I just arrived at the Hotel Candide in Casablanca. We're going to hang out here for a few days before heading to Fez. Tomorrow we're going to the embassy to obtain an Algerian visa. Now that we are settled in, I need to get away from Nancy. I make my way through the winding streets where I come upon a locals-only place above a cafe. I sit up here for hours on end with the Moroccans. I drink the glorious mint tea in tall glasses and share in smoking some keef in long pipes. The Moroccans are very friendly people. The ever-present music spills from all directions. The people are very exciting and exotic. I can't understand them to communicate well, but I can enjoy them as people and share in their customs. I love Morocco. Next day, and we are off to the embassy. We wait in line for several hours, nothing to do but wait. Finally, we receive our Algerian visas. It looks really great and exotic on my passport, filling a whole page. I spend another evening at a second-floor rooftop table in another locals-only cafe. Tomorrow morning, we will attempt a hitchhike from Casablanca to Fez. It's December 13, 1970, and we're in Fez, Morocco. The trip ahead across North Africa is going to be a dazzler. This morning, I wake up just before noon with music blaring, loud Arab music across the street from the hotel. Nancy is snoring in my face, still out. Laying in bed next to me, I start penning in my journal. Who is this Nancy Thomas that I find myself reluctantly tethered to? She hails from the great northwest state of Washington near Spokane. Nancy is not what one would consider as a pretty girl. She's very dull, plain, average-looking, and she can be surly, curmudgeonly around people in general. We are not attracted to each other, just traveling companions, but yet I find myself in bed with her all the time. Very platonic. I think she would do it with me if I tried, but I'm not going down that road. No way. I'm not interested in any more feminine dramas, not after Eileen, and I really had a great time sexually with Eileen, but I can't take the useless drama. It's one thing to be a horny guy looking for a quick love-making session with a nice woman, and yet quite another thing when it turns into nagging and bitching incessantly. I find it bothersome to a peaceful state of mind when Nancy goes off on her rants, complaints, aches, pains, worries. She is a never-ending complainer about everyone and everything. I bought some earplugs to tune her out. Other times, when we are relaxing and out to dinner after a long day's travel, and especially meeting our goal and getting to Fez, Nancy can be so interesting to talk to. She is very knowledgeable about geography and history. She just graduated from college and decided to take this sojourn, this voyage into the unknown to gain real-world experience before embarking on a career as a teacher. I have to give it to her. It takes more than guts and courage to do something like this as a single female. Almost all the females I've seen have been traveling with groups or boyfriends. Nancy is a lone traveler, like me. The conversations with Nancy can get pretty interesting now and then, but mostly she just bitches and complains. It's difficult for a brash, fun-loving extrovert like me to hang out regularly with such a downer sourpuss. How do we get to Fez? We hitched a ride from Casablanca to the capital city of Morocco, Rabat. Abdul, our driver, has limited English, but he seems to understand when I speak. As we near Rabat, his destination, Abdul motions with his hand to mouth as if eating food from an imaginary bowl. You inviting us out to dinner? I inquire. Abdul vigorously nods his head and smiles. He slaps the steering wheel and snaps his right index finger and thumb. We understand each other. We are now in a neighborhood as Abdul steers us to a driveway of an elegant home. I'm up in the front passenger seat with Abdul. Nancy is resting in the back seat. Nancy, wake up. It's the end of our ride. Huh? What? She yawns. Where are we? I turn around in the front seat so I can look at Nancy in the back seat while talking to her. Abdul, our student driver friend, has offered to feed us. We've arrived at his place. Abdul parks his classy cream-colored BMW at the end of a long, winding driveway through wooded acreage. The home is immaculate. The grounds obviously maintained by a gardening staff. I look out upon the yard to rows and rows of vegetables of every kind. Tomatoes, beans, corn, carrots, and fruit too. Rows of grapevines, apple trees, cherry trees, and a lone pear tree. Abdul invites us in and introduces us as his friends from America, to Yosef and Camille. We discover that all three of the Moroccans are students of medicine and biology. All three aim to be doctors of some kind. We follow the host to the dining room table. Nancy is uncomfortable around these three men as she keeps tugging at my arm. I break free from her grasp and bat her arm away, but she persists. Nancy sits real close to me as we take our seats at the table. We cannot understand the language as our hosts speak in Arabic to each other, but we understand the need to eat some good food after a weary day of road travel. They bring out dish after dish from the kitchen. Vegetables, fruits, rice, pastries, cakes, and pies. The meat is lamb, served on slices of homemade brown bread. This is the best meal I've had since entering Morocco. I know from experience that the average Moroccans don't live in this style or eat this way. Our friends are in the upper elite of wealth status, sons of doctors studying to be doctors. All three of them ask periodically through our dinner, why hippie? This is a constant question that comes up quite often in the non-Western world. They obviously do not approve of our lifestyle. Every time I'm asked, why hippie, I'm always met with a look of disdain. It doesn't matter what I say in response. They probably can't understand me anyway, but my three new friends seem curious, more curious than disdainful, so I attempt once again to explain myself. You see, man, it's all about freedom of expression. Peace, love, the brotherhood of man, I exclaim. The three guys, Abdul, Yosef, and Camille, look back at me with blank stares. I noticed when we entered the capital city many posters all over town decrying the use of drugs. Keef destroys body and soul. Hashish is poison. It seems to be very negative and political around here to side with any kind of drug use. I decide to hold my tongue on that issue. We want to travel the hippie trail to be exposed to the many different cultures and people of the earth. It's been a great adventure and learning experience, I say. Don't you think so, Nancy? Uh-huh, she responds. Nancy has been quietly eating, not saying anything, so I attempt to bring her into the conversation. She doesn't want any part of talking. Nancy stares at her plate of food while eating and will not meet the glances from our hosts. I think she seems very different to them. I notice that all three seem to look at her with curiosity. They can tell I'm not her lover by how I act. Maybe they think I'm her brother. As our sumptuous dinner concludes, one of our hosts, Yosef, rattles his car keys in hand and says, "Drive to Fez?" "Sure," I respond. "That'd be great." "She up front with me," he says, pointing directly at Nancy. I look at Nancy to assure her, but she meets my glance with a look of horror and fright. "Come on, Nancy, this will get us to Fez in the shortest amount of time." She pulls at my arm and shakes her head. "No." I whisper in her ear at the table, "Everything will be okay. We need to do this to keep moving. Come on," I implore her. Nancy releases her tug on the sleeve of my shirt and lets out a deep breath of resignation. "Okay, Steve, you better be right, because you need to protect me if anything happens." "Nothing will happen. We're just hitching a ride to Fez," I say. So we are saying our goodbyes and thank yous to Camille and Abdul. I thank Abdul for driving us from Casablanca and getting us a good meal as well as a new ride. Yes, we unload our backpack gear from Abdul's BMW to Yosef's Mercedes-Benz, a metallic gray, shining, ornate. Wow, what a luxurious vehicle. He opens the trunk for me, and I put in our gear and close the lid. Nancy gets in the front seat, and I get in the back seat. I settle into the beautiful plush tan leather seat. This should be a fun ride. Joseph takes us on down the long, winding driveway and onto the main road heading to Fez. We get about 100 kilometers closer to our destination, nearing the next major city of Meknes, when Joseph suddenly pulls over and turns the car off. Nancy jumps out of the front passenger seat, hollering, bitching, and complaining. I don't even know what's going on, for I dozed off a bit. Nancy opens the back door and gets in the back seat with me. "He's grabbing at me," she says. "He's been propositioning me. He's rude." "How do you know? You can't even understand what he says," I respond. "I can understand when he grabs a handful of my hair and pulls my head toward his lap," she cries. "He did that to you?" Nancy buries her head in my chest and hugs in tight on me to protect her as she continues. I look up front at Joseph, who meets my glance with his eyes through the reflection from the rearview mirror. I shake my head in disapproval. Joseph opens his door, gets out, opens the trunk, and sets our stuff beside the road. Then he opens the back door and points at us to get out of his car. We are suddenly stranded on a stretch of lonely highway, hitchhiking once again. Nancy and I stand next to our gear on the side of the road, not saying anything to each other. Joseph peels out down the road in his Mercedes. We watch his car get smaller and finally disappear on the horizon. We are literally stunned at the predicament we find ourselves in now. A rickety industrial van pulls over within the half hour, and we are luckily back on our way. The driver motions for us to get in the back as we approach his vehicle. Many loose janitorial items lie around. The seats are removed, so we sprawl out on the floor of the van, leaning against the back wheel hub opposite each other. I'm excited and giddy like a child at play. Conversely, Nancy is withdrawn and downcast, her countenance conveying an image of weariness from worry and stress. I ignore her woefulness and concentrate on my hopefulness. The wandering journey of mythic proportions resumes. Mythic to me, anyway. I'm searching for my buried soul within myself. This wondrous journey is opening new vistas for my future soul growth. I am aroused to the purpose of living a glorious life. I peek out the back window at the beautiful, rich countryside. The rolling hills catch the late afternoon sun in a panoramic reflection of light and shadow. Nature is awe-inspiring to behold at times. Many of us take the environment and the natural elements of nature for granted. I feel and sense a great harmony of connection with nature. We arrive in Meknes and get dropped off in Midtown in the evening by our driver. It has been a long day of travel. Nancy and I share a room at a nearby hotel for 5 dirham. Then we decide to take a late night stroll together in the city. We walk through a surprisingly European-type setting. Very plush. We continue walking through the town until we arrive at the edges of the city and it suddenly turns into shanty town. Nancy gets real fearful as she urges me to turn around and go back. I leave immediately with her as we scurry back to the cozier setting. What a stark contrast. We make it back to our hotel where we get a quick bite to eat, and then to the hotel room for much needed rest. This morning I rolled out of bed around noon after lying in bed the last couple hours listening to the consonant Arab music blaring across the street from our hotel. Nancy and I pack up, clean up, have lunch together, and prepare to hit the road. We are hitching from Meknes to Fez. It takes a couple of hours of thumbing and being ignored by everyone before we finally hitch a ride. What a relief. Our driver's name is Saeed, and he is a dentist traveling to Fez. Great. Our luck is back on track. Plus, Saeed can speak English well. "You like traveling, my friend?" he says to me. "Sure." "I will tell you the good cities and bad places in Morocco," he boasts, "as well as other great cities around the world. Where are your travels taking you to?" "I've been all over to many countries around the globe. Libya, Spain, Algeria, Egypt, Palestine, Lebanon, Turkey, and Iran." Well, I started out in Northern Europe, came down to Spain, then crossed into Morocco. I've been to Ceuta, Tetuan, Casablanca, Marrakesh, and Essaouira, I say. Oh, I don't like Ceuta or Tetuan, says the Moroccan dentist. Casablanca and Marrakesh are very nice. I've never been to Essaouira. We've got to keep moving because we have a lot of territory to cover, I say. We're traveling through Morocco, then Algeria and Tunisia, close to the coastline. Then we need to cross over the sea to Sicily, then head up the front of the Italian boot to Rome. You have quite a journey ahead of you, offers Said. Palermo, Sicily is great, so is Rome, a cosmopolitan city with all the ancient history. Beware of pickpocketers in Naples if you happen to pass through, but before you get to any of that, you have some rough travels to cover in North Africa. Oh yeah, we know it, I agree. We're just taking it as it comes, trying to pool our resources to cover new ground each day. Traveling can be grueling on the body, I complain. And so it goes as we journey down the road with the talkative Moroccan dentist. I sit up front in his nice family-sized automobile. Nancy sits in the back, quiet, never uttering a sound. Our driver takes us the rest of the way to Fez. We continue on with our travels from Fez to the Moroccan border with Algeria. We are in a cheap hotel in the old market area in Fez. Actually, we are in a place that is referred to as the Medina. What a very unique place. Groovy, man. Loud Arab music blares from outside. The market stalls were closed when we got in last night. Fez is separated into three parts: the old, walled city, the French-created Ville Nouvelle, and the new Fez. The Medina is in the ancient city, the Medina of Fez el-Bali, and it is said to be the largest contiguous car-free urban area in the world. The streets in these areas are very narrow. Scooters, bikes, and motorcycles do come through occasionally, but mostly just people walk through the tight quarters of the streets, meandering through vendor stalls along the way. The streets are shaded from the burning noonday sun in this region that borders the Sahara Desert. In the heart of the Medina, when all the shops are open, the streets can be very difficult to get through, but the natives make it work even with a loaded-down donkey. It helps immensely that the people of Morocco have such hospitality, warmth, and consideration to others, especially foreigners. Hospitality is an important value of the Moroccan people, as nearly everyone has treated me well. I get up early in the morning and head to a nearby post office. A wintry morning chill fills the air. I need to purchase some warmer clothing. I'm freezing. I make it to the post office to make a collect home call to my family, brother, mother, and sisters. It's a long wait for the phone call to go through. At about 11:30 a.m., I'm finally connected to have a quick call with my family for about 10 minutes. It's so great to hear everyone's voice. I miss my people. They say it's almost 6 in the morning there in Michigan, and it's very cold and snowy with blizzard-like conditions. I walk back to the hotel and get Nancy. We're going to spend the afternoon roaming through the Medina. The market opens up around us like flowers opening to the morning sun. The Medina is a bowl-shaped area, so we climb up and down a lot as we make our way through the narrow, winding streets. We meet a Moroccan Berber named Mustafa. He invites us to his house for tea, bread, and butter. We stay for about 20 minutes, but then Nancy tugs at my arm and kicks at my foot under the table, motioning that we should go. I take the hint, and we thank our host and move on. We resume our sojourn through the Medina. What a fantastic maze of incredible things to see. The bowl-shaped layout lends itself to a dream world experience. The streets and alleyways take many turns, and we become confused, but somehow we always manage to get back to the main drag and reorient ourselves once again. What a heavy trip this is. I'm in a fairyland of bright colors, endless wares, and countless people. It's a new day, and I'm out taking a solitary walk through Fez this morning. We plan on leaving tomorrow for the town of Taza. Then the next town after that will get us to the Algerian border. As I continue walking through the streets, I cut through a schoolyard. Uh-oh, wrong move. I'm quickly swarmed and surrounded by a mob of 9-year-olds. The boys are yelling at me and becoming aggressive. Some stones are hurled at me. I put my arms up by my head to shield my face. Mob psychology has broken out, and I am unwittingly the target of their anger. The taunting and shouting increases to an elevated crescendo. The only thing I can understand is repeated shouts of hippie, hippie. I try to keep walking, but the mass of kids comes with me, enveloping my every move, no matter the direction I take. I am trapped and weary. What can I do? A rock comes from the crowd and crashes into the side of my head, staggering me and opening up a bloody gash. I'm in trouble. I feel weak-kneed, like I'm about to topple over. I maintain my upright balance as the angry crowd pushes in closer to me. I feel my heart racing and the adrenaline spike in my body. Just then an old man breaks through the crowd of kids and ushers them all away. I'm very thankful. That was an unexpected, intimidating experience. I thank the old man, shake his hand, then start moving swiftly back to the safety of my hotel. We decide to take a train trip from Fez to Zaza. We must walk 5 kilometers from the Medina to the train station. Carrying our heavy backpacks makes the trip seem longer. I say a silent goodbye to Fez as we take our seats on the train. I wish we could have stayed longer, but we've got to keep moving. The train takes us down the tracks to our new destination. Nancy is struggling through the process. She won't let herself have too much joy. She's very inhibited and timid. Despite her constant worries, we are making some headway in our travels. We disembark at the train station in Taza. As we walk into the town, a vehicle pulls up with 2 cops inside, Karam and Zahil. "Can we help direct you somewhere in Taza?" offers Karam in perfect English. "We're just looking for a place to stay for a night or two," I say. "Then we're off to the Algerian border." "You can come and stay with us," says Zahil. "We have an extra room with 2 beds. You will be safe," says Karam, pointing to the badge pinned to his chest on his cop uniform. I look at Nancy for approval, but she meets my look with an antsy nervousness. I ignore her timid nature. "Sure, why not?" I say. We jump in the back seat of the police car, and we are off to Zahil's house. Today is our 2nd day in Taza. Tomorrow we will finally make it to the Algerian border. This trip has been a gas. Our hosts have been the most hospitable people I've ever met. I felt at quite the disadvantage communication-wise ever since we entered Morocco. It evokes a sense of being in another exotic world where everybody speaks a foreign language I do not understand. But even with this limitation, I've been able to get along through general textures and gestures. It's so obvious that I'm lost and confused and hardly know what really goes on. So meeting Moroccans who can speak my tongue is pretty rare, but cool when it happens. Yesterday, we awoke at 8 a.m. as the morning light filled the bedroom. I was refreshed from the exhaustion of our rigorous travels. It felt great to sleep in our own beds for the first time in a while. Nancy and I remained in bed as we greeted our host who stood at the bedroom door. "My servant has prepared tea, bread, and donuts," Karam says. "I have to go to work at the station, but I'll be back around noon for lunch." And with that, our host departed, and we never said a word, just staring dumbfounded at his outlandish kindness towards us strangers. The servant lady brought us the breakfast as promised on a tray to our bedroom. Then she smiled at us and closed the door to our room. Nancy and I jumped out of the bed to sample the spread. What lovely people. Nancy and I looked out the window for the first time to find ourselves immersed in an awe-inspiring view of nature. We arrived in the dark the previous night and didn't realize we were encompassed by such an astounding landscape as the one here in Taza. I surveyed the smooth mountains that appeared more like sloping hills trailing to the green valley below, extending the countryside to the horizon line as far as I could see from our bedroom view. Wow, what a majestic sight. The valley is green with many trees, crops, and homes, ringing all around the sloping sides. Our elevation on high takes in everything. I can even see some ancient ruins. Few travelers come here, especially because we're nearing Algeria, which is isolated due to being a communist nation. We walked to the Medina after breakfast. It was very small compared to Fez. Strangely, for the first time I walk about and nobody calls out hippie at me. Not many tourists pass through this unknown and relatively out-of-the-way city. I liked it. This is the real, undiscovered Morocco I long to see. Back at the lodging, our host has been tremendous. All the work here in the kitchen is done by a kerchiefed little old stout woman who goes by the name of Mabdallah. She served us meatballs and sauce with incredible baked bread, then a delicious mutton dish with turnips and other vegetables at dinner. Karam and Zahil were at work all day, so we had a lot of free time to roam. Nancy is bumming me out, as per usual, with her annex. She's uptight all the time. The people here are so nice, but she won't let herself enjoy the hospitality. What a Scrooge. I won't let her spoil it for me. I love Morocco and the Moroccan people. Today we greet the morning once again with the beautiful old lady Mabdallah. She's a fine jewel of a woman. She always laughs and smiles as she serves us. She lacks a lot of teeth, and we can't overcome the language barrier, so I just laugh and smile at her during meal times. She is most concerned that we are happy and comfortable, so I try to let her know through my gestures that we are very happy. Even depressive Nancy puts on a few fake smiles aimed at Mabdallah to reassure her. Karam and Zahil drive us up into the hills of the mountains, where the view is even more spectacular. The mountains are so beautiful from this point of view, taking in a majestic panorama of brownish-red mountaintops that seem to spread forever, folding into each other. When we get back from our trip to the high plateaus, Mabdallah has a great spread waiting for us. After dinner, we enjoy tea on the roof with our hosts and listen to music from Otis Redding and the Beatles. What a way to conclude my Moroccan tour. Sitting by the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Karam gives us a ride to the bus depot this morning. We pay our bus fare and part with a sad farewell. Zahil and Mabdallah and myself enjoyed your company. Thank you for being our guest, says Karam. He unloads our gear from the trunk of his car. I hand Nancy her backpack, then I load my pack on my back. Thank you, Karam, my brother. You are a wonderful man. We truly appreciate the hospitality that you, Zahil, and Mabdallah extended to us. We shake hands and then board the bus. My friend from Taza looks genuinely sad to see us leave as I gaze back at him from the window of my seat. I feel sad and melancholy too, a sudden spike of woe. I don't want to go either, but we must keep moving on. I wave to my friend as the bus leaves the depot. The ride to Oujda is grueling down the dry, dusty roads. I am silent, alone with my thoughts. A new set of adventures awaits us in our travels. I've made it this far with Nancy. Will I be able to endure her all the way to Rome? I look at her beside me in the seat, asleep, her head on my shoulder. I'm like her brother for now, I guess. It is good to have someone to talk with while going through this rigorous travel. I would be tremendously lonely if I was doing this North African travel alone. We are now at the border town. We depart the bus and hoist our backpacks. The small town doesn't have much to offer. We just need a place to sleep and a bite to eat. The hotel room we get is cheap with a dirt floor, but it only costs 70 cents for the two of us. Tomorrow we enter Algeria.